This video does not endorse, promote, or glorify any form of illegal or harmful activity. Hey guys, young Psychonaut here, back at it again with another video, and you guys have probably been wondering what is taking so long with new video, like your rate of uploading has changed dramatically in the last few weeks, and that is because I have some professional obligations to tend to now. Just between work and school, I just simply do not have the time to make videos anymore like that, so you will be seeing a change in my upload schedule, mainly because I just simply do not have the time. It's not like I lost interest in the channel or in you guys. It is simply just a time constraint thing. Okay, so today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics and also one of the things that I've been actively pursuing in the last period of my life, and that is how I optimize positive outcomes from classic psychedelics. And this is very specific because I have been using classic psychedelics in the past few years, but more this year, specifically 2025, to enhance my day-to-day living, I would say. Not by being on them constantly, but by using the positive outcomes that come from tripping on classical psychedelics to benefit me in my life, basically. So just a quick disclaimer, this video is not medical advice. This should kind of not be your last option, but should be very well considered after you've tried many different things, like seek professional help. I've also had therapy, which really helped me. So if you're in a rut or anything that you think, okay, I want to use psychedelics to kind of make my life better, maybe there's other ways that are less prone to risk. Try to do this as logically as possible. If you're having really bad mental problems, maybe psychedelics are not for you. You know, they can really, or if you have a disposition to it, because if you have anyone in your family who is schizophrenic or anything like that, don't go to psychedelics. Yeah, that is definitely not a good idea, I would say. But anyways, this is one of the tools that you could use if you are responsible with it. Also, psychedelics can simply not help you if you have major other problems in your life that need to be addressed. So psychedelics are really, I think personally, for moments where everything is correct, like you have good social relationships, you have good school, whatever, just your life should objectively be good, but you're still not feeling like you're happy or you have agency in your life, etc. I think psychedelics are the most powerful in these cases where it's really about your own mind that makes your life less good. Whereas when your life is not good because you can't afford food or you can't afford housing or whatever, those things will not go away if you take psychedelics. It's not like you're not prone to having problems or anything. It's more about if your mind is kind of blocking you from being more happy or more creative or more productive. I think that is the moment where psychedelics can really shine. Also, just simply heavy drug addiction, alcohol addiction, opioid addiction, etc. It has been shown that psychedelics can also really help with that too. But again, it's not a magical safe pill. It's not like as if you take psychedelics, it's just gonna help with this. And that's why I make this video, to get basically you to do psychedelics in a way that optimizes the positive outcomes and minimizes the negative outcomes, because psychedelics do also have negative outcomes, and that is why I'm going to dive into a story of that also. But first, just a little recap, let's understand what classical psychedelics are. So classical psychedelics are substances that specifically target serotonin receptors in the brain, and mostly the 5-HT2A receptor. And this receptor is thought to be mainly responsible for also the psychedelic effects. So that's the tripping, the hallucinating, the visuals, etc. Why can psychedelics get you positive results after taking them when it comes to mental well-being, I would say? This is because classical psychedelics can initiate neuroplasticity or increase neuroplasticity, which is basically your brain's ability to restructure itself. It could either be removing connections between neurons, it could be adding new connections between neurons, it could be increasing or decreasing the strength of certain connections. So this is really where where the theory comes from why psychedelics can for example help you with addiction or things like that. Because the thing with neuroplasticity, or in general with, for example, rigid behavioral patterns, is that, for example, if you are addicted to alcohol, then this will make in your brain the connections that want you to get alcohol stronger and stronger as the more you take it. So this is like a positive feedback loop where if you do a certain behavior, your brain will automatically be more inclined to do that behavior. This doesn't hold up for everything, but especially for like drug abuse, this is a very like rigid pattern that we see. And what basically neuroplasticity does is it allows your brain to break out of those patterns by creating new connections, by severing older connections. And that could also initiate a change in behavior, a change in mood, a change in perception. The thing though is that neuroplasticity is just that. It is the ability to change. It is not in itself positive or negative, because any connection in the brain could be a positive or negative feeling for you, but you can't really steer that just simply by increasing neuroplasticity. So that is why these steps are so important to do around psychedelics, because if you do certain things around psychedelics, you increase your neuroplasticity and then you utilize that neuroplasticity for positive changes. So to make positive new connections, get rid of old negative connections, etc., etc. So that's also why I have a story about how I got basically a negative trauma experience on classic psychedelics and how this has affected me and my character years later even. And this really stresses the importance of not getting into a really negative situation while on psychedelics, because again, your neuroplasticity is so high that if you have like a trauma experience or a negative experience, this will also be extremely deeply imprinted in your brain, because the plasticity is just high enough for those changes to materialize basically. So this story is just a quick story about basically how I took a bunch of acid in the morning, like a lot for me, 250 UG, but it was acid analog, so that means that it was 100% converted. So this was really 250 UG, not like when you get a tab on the street that says 250 and it's actually 150. So I had a very strong trip, and at a certain point I just basically kind of didn't want to go on anymore. I was very sad during the trip. I was like crying, everything. So I took a benzo, a trip killer, to stop the trip, which did stop the trip, kind of, but still the acid was inside of my body. Then I decided to take more substances like 3-MMC, like Ritalin, smoke a whole bunch of weed. Like I was on a lot of substances, but mainly the acid was still going strong. It had just like been like 5 hours before I took the acid. So that's when I really like had this amazing idea of go selling some cannabis to some people on Snapchat, which also don't do that. But anyway, so I get there, we got the weed, and basically I was geeked out of my mind. And I think they also knew that because they could see that in some way. And at the moment where the exchange was happening, I gave them the weed. They said, okay, we're going to get the money. That already should have tipped me off that something was wrong, but I was so geeked, I just didn't really realize. And basically they ran away and they robbed me of my weed. Of course, this situation is not that crazy on itself. Like, okay, you were selling some weed and they took the weed. But in that state of like being totally geeked on acid, on 3-MMC, on a bunch of benzos, like a bunch of shit, it fully felt like I was supposed to get them. So I basically chased them down for like a few blocks. It was like a whole situation. At a certain point they escaped and I was just left there with like just a feeling that I just kind of died or something. Like because of all the drugs in my system, because of all the psychedelics, it just felt like this was the worst thing to ever happen to me. And it was a very, very intense situation where I really thought I could be stabbed or shot or like anything that would be negative in that situation. So of course, okay, this happened. Sure, you sober up, but because of the neuroplasticity in that moment, this event has shaped my whole personality since then, in the sense that it really like diminished my trust in people. When I meet someone new, and it could even be through a source that I know is good, like through school or whatever, I'm automatically like inclined to not trust them, to be like they have to kind of prove to me internally that I can actually trust them. And that is because that moment I kind of trusted that, you know, the exchange would just go as planned and it would just be chill as all the exchanges I did before then. And it just totally disrupted my kind of perception of people, and my trust in people was basically broken. So this is really a story to tell you guys, if you do psychedelics, you can do damage to yourself. You can do damage to like how you perceive certain things if you have a negative association with that on psychedelics. Okay, that was a very crazy story, etc., to kind of show you guys that neuroplasticity is not always a positive. Now we're going to get into how I make my trips as positive as possible to get the benefits from neuroplasticity. So, first of all, let's talk about the amount, because there's been a few studies on this, and they've looked into microdosing, they've looked into normal macrodosing, etc. And the evidence does show that, for example, microdosing does not have a statistical significant positive influence. Like, some people say they do feel positive things, some people say they don't, and if you average all that out, it's kind of like a nothing burger. I do also microdose, so don't get me wrong. If you feel like you're getting a positive thing from microdosing, that's cool, but it's probably a placebo. So if you really want to incite enough neuroplasticity to get like actual positive changes that are also significantly verifiable, I would say go for a real trip, like a macro trip. I would say about, for shrooms, maybe a gram or above, maybe 1.5 grams or above. For acid, I would say about 100 micrograms of like pure acid. Things like that. I think those above those ranges will get you the most benefit. Of course, there's also an upper limit. If you take too much, it can also incite like anxiety or a traumatic experience, so don't go overboard. But let's say if you take a little, this will probably not give you much to work with. Another thing that I personally feel has made the most impact on my positive neuroplasticity is simply meditating while being on the trip, but also the days after and the weeks after while the neuroplasticity is high. These are the moments where mindfulness, meditation, all those kinds of practices will have considerably more impact on your mind. And I know for a fact, that's also fMRI confirmed, that meditation can also change the structure of your brain. If you are in a neuroplastic state, it's just way easier for meditation to bring positive changes to your mind. And this also makes sense on like a neuron level. Like if your neurons are more easily changing and meditation can already change them, then well, this change will just go more easily. Okay, so this next tip, or the few next tips, are basically what not to do or what to do while tripping. I would really advise you guys not to use the internet, not to go on social media, not to interact through screens, not go on WhatsApp, not go on Snapchat. Don't interact with technology while you're on psychedelics. Why? Because I personally think that this creates a way more pristine condition for the psychedelic to really incite positive change. Of course, doing these things will not necessarily increase or decrease neuroplasticity, but it will use the neuroplasticity to create patterns in your brain that relate to the things you're doing while you're on psychedelics. So if you're like on social media and being annoyed by people, or just like whatever, having specific social emotions, then those things will be kind of more deeply ingrained in you, even though that's not really something positive you want with neuroplasticity. So my tip for like really steering your neuroplasticity to positivity is listen to good music while you're on psychedelics. Like, just make a playlist with your favorite music. A lot of people like things like Pink Floyd, all those kinds of psychedelic 20th century music, or maybe you're more of an EDM fan, but even there I would say choose something that's a little bit more relaxing, because that is just easier for the brain to process in general. Also, just lay back and let the experience happen. Don't try to seek out adventure, because this will create again a mind space where the neuroplasticity is used to solve problems instead of just letting positive things come and happen. So I would say don't go somewhere, don't go outside, don't, like, maybe in nature, just sitting still in nature would be cool, but don't go into cities, don't go into crowded spaces. That's like so much stimulation that the neuroplasticity will basically simply be used to process that stimulation and not to, well, yeah, get positive results. Also, not being with too many people. Like, honestly, I think being alone, if you're experienced, or with one good friend is the best for positive results. This really steers your brain to internal reflection, to thinking about what's going on around you, instead of like being forced to think about social aspects, which in my opinion just kind of distracts your brain from the real thing that you want to get out of this. Again, I would say do this in a very safe environment, like your home or your friend's home. Make sure no disturbances are during the trip, like not somebody coming home who doesn't know about it or anything like that. Like, make the trip as pristine and as simple as possible. Make it as safe as possible. Make it an environment where you feel so safe you can just let go and just be, without trying to be something or trying to cater to social expectations. Those things, in my opinion, all distract the brain from getting like actual positive results from this. And again, these are just basically my tips. I'm not saying you can't do psychedelics another way. I'm just saying if I do it this way, it brings me the most positive results. And again, don't traumatize yourself. Simply don't take too much. Don't get into weird situations like I did. Don't invite a bunch of people over that you know, it's just not helping you. So what is the optimal trip? Very simply, in your home, safe, where basically you have the whole day for yourself in your home. Make a really good playlist, get some really nice psychedelic music in there, go take your psychedelics, go lay on the couch and just feel what's going on. Eat some healthy things maybe. You could watch a familiar movie, but honestly, I would advise against watching screens too much if you want the most positive benefits. Like, I also, not every trip has to be the most optimal, but if I'm going for actually trying to change positive things in my life, I will try to adhere to these tips as much as possible. Okay, so yeah, I hope you guys learned something from this video. Again, my upload frequency will not be as high as normal, but I still want to make these videos because I think they can really help people and make lives better. So be careful, be risk averse, try to do this as logically as possible. So really think about your situation and if this can apply to you, and if so, hopefully you will get something positive out of it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.